How do you change what you think about yourself? It isn't about trying to convince yourself that you're something you're not. It's about giving yourself permission to make new and unexpected choices. You're listening to Pure Light, where we explore how you can believe in yourself and be happy with who you are, so that you feel worthy of your craziest dreams and confident in your power to make them happen. My name is Ailey. I'm a coach, writer, and Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher. This is episode 79, and it's about how to change your self-image. So in the last episode, I talked about self-image, like how what you think of yourself determines what's possible for your life, and also how by default, you will never do anything that doesn't align with who you think you are. So in this episode, I want to talk about how to change what you think of yourself. Because if there's something that you want that you feel like you can't have, it means there's probably a limiting belief in there about how you aren't worthy or don't deserve it, or how it just isn't possible for you. So you have a choice when you notice something like that. You can either keep believing that and thinking that and let it deflate you and get into a negative state, or you can choose to change the belief, which in this case means changing your self-image. So changing what you think and believe about yourself. But it can be a bit of a challenge to change your self-image because you interpret everything through the lens of what you already believe. I touched on this in the last episode as well, but basically, every decision you make and every action you take reinforces the things that you already think and believe about yourself. And this is not to say that your self-image doesn't evolve naturally. It does. It just doesn't usually evolve consciously. It usually evolves unconsciously as life happens. So when things happen in your life, so for example, if you graduate or get a degree, get into a relationship, get out of a relationship, get a promotion, you don't get a promotion, you get rejected. When stuff like that happens, the mind adopts an idea about who you are based on the story you tell yourself about what happens. And then that story becomes part of your self-concept or how you think about yourself. And then that mental concept, so your self-image or who you think you are, becomes the basis for the decisions that you make. So it informs the decisions that you make. So for example, you might say something to yourself like, I can't do that because I was rejected and that's proof that I'm not good enough and I don't have what it takes. Something like that. So it's a story that you're telling yourself that kind of keeps you away from the thing that you want. So when you're doing stuff like that, you're basically reinforcing whatever ideas you have about yourself because every decision you make supports those ideas. And this is why it can be hard to change your self-image because every decision you make is based on who you know yourself to be. And it's all based on what's happened in the past. So just to give you a concrete example, and I've talked about this before, so I'll link to the previous episodes where I go into more detail about this story if you want to listen to that. In high school, something my English teacher said led me to believe that I sucked at writing. So I didn't write even though I wanted to, and even though I felt called to, because I had the belief that it wasn't worth it, because I believed that my writing wasn't good enough. And it took me a long time to even realize that I had this belief because it was somewhat unconscious. Like it just felt like I had a block against writing. But once I realized what the problem was, I realized I needed to write. So I needed to make a different choice there and do it in spite of the idea that I had about myself and not being worthy of doing it. So I've written a bunch of stuff since then, like articles and blog posts, and I was working on a book earlier this year until I realized I needed to put it on hold. And one of the things that I wrote also earlier this year was an essay that I really loved. And I was quite proud of it when I finished it. And I still am whenever I go back and reread it. And that was in February that I wrote that. And then in April, I went to a writing workshop with Joyce Maynard. And she said to me in that workshop many things, but one of them was, "You're a good writer." And I believed her. Like I was actually able to receive that. And the only reason that it was easy for me to believe that and to accept that compliment was because I had already created evidence for myself that I'm a good writer by making the choice to write. So I had already changed that aspect of my self-image. I wasn't waiting for something to happen for it to change for me. So how do you intentionally change your self-image? So you could try to convince yourself, which will probably be difficult because it's at the mental level and it's not based on any evidence that you're creating. So, for example, I could have been trying to tell myself, I'm a good writer, without actually writing anything, which would have been, I think, very, very hard to do for me to convince myself of that. Because I think when you do something like that, it leads to resistance and judgment and negativity and that kind of thing. So there is another option, and that is to start creating new evidence by making different decisions. So in order to evolve, you need to suspend your ideas about who you think you are, and then make choices based on who you want to be. So in order to change your self-image, you need to do something that defies who you know yourself to be. Something outside of the rules you've been allowing yourself to play by. Something outside of your spectrum of reality. So those things that you consider normal in your life. So you need to do something that's in the direction of the new normal you would like to create, which means that you have to step outside your comfort zone. You cannot change your self-image without experiencing some level of discomfort. Discomfort is a sign that growth is happening, so you need to embrace it and consciously choose to face it instead of avoiding it and sticking to the status quo. It has to be a conscious choice to expand and grow and do something outside your comfort zone. It is not going to happen by default, because what's going to happen by default is you're going to keep making decisions and taking actions that just reinforce what you already think about yourself. So you have the power to change what you think and believe about yourself simply by making different decisions and taking different actions. When you let go of who you think you are, you're free to make new decisions, because those decisions are no longer informed by your self-image. Changing your self-image isn't about trying to convince yourself you're something or someone you're not. It's about giving yourself permission to make new and unexpected choices, which is totally within your power. Self-image is self-created, and it's based on the evidence you create for yourself, both in terms of the actions you take and the decisions you make, as well as what you say to yourself about yourself. So when you consciously choose to create new evidence, your self-image will evolve naturally. I'm going to be talking more about self-image, rules, permission, and things like that in the next couple of episodes. Subscribe to Pure Light wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you get them. I know fear is something that can often get in the way of making new and unexpected choices, but it doesn't have to be. If you need help dealing with the fear that comes up with that, get Become Your Bravest Self. You can either go to becomeyourbravestself.com to get it, or if you sign up for my Sunday self-love emails, I will send it to you. It'll help you start making conscious choices to get outside your comfort zone so that you can evolve your self-image and see yourself in a new light. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, may you be guided by your light.